Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's really nice to see so many people here. I've called this event, this evening, the elegant simplicity of horn playing. Basically because it has seemed to me over many years of playing and teaching and reading and talking to people about the horn that there can be quite a lot of confusion. It's one of those subjects, probably like all subjects, that you can make as complicated or as simple as you want. And my feeling has always been to try to keep things as simple as possible. So with that in mind, I thought I would try to lead us through some of the basics of horn playing and then lead on to what I see as some of the important basics of what any musician needs to be able to be a successful musician, someone who will play music in a way that people perhaps would like to listen to. As I say, this is very much my point of view, and there are any number of different ways of describing the activity of playing the horn, the thing that we're always trying to do. And I don't for 1 minute think that my approach is the only approach or is even right and others are wrong. It's really just a question of camera angle. So this evening is really my camera angle on things. So, what do we need to do to play the horn? Well, we need to pick it up first of all. So, how do we hold it? We hold it like this, and it should be the same whether we're standing or sitting. So if I'm sitting, it's like that, and if I'm standing, it's like that. My upper body is exactly the same. My very first teacher said to me, sit up straight and bring the instrument to you. Like that. Still very, very good advice. There are some players who like to rest the bell on the leg. Personally, I don't like to do that. Mostly because it can, and I emphasise the word can, lead to posture problems. I mean, for instance, if I rest my instrument there on my leg because I'm so incredibly tall, it kind of comes to about there. So if I were to try and play it, I would need to kind of scrunch down like that, which actually is clearly not good for posture and for breathing. Conversely, you very often see young children, people are starting the horn younger and younger these days, playing on very widely angled horns where the mouthpiece is coming up here and they're having to reach for it. So, personally speaking, I would rather have a position that is the same sitting or standing. And we place the mouthpiece on the lips as central as possible, so under the nose, and ideally we should have 2/3 of the mouthpiece on the top lip, 1/3 on the bottom lip. And it's important, this is actually an important thing to say, at the very, very beginning of playing the horn, try really hard to make sure that the top part of the mouthpiece, the top of the rim, is sitting just above the red, the vermilion of the lips. So it's actually sitting on the white, just a little bit. The reason for this being that when we come to make a sound, it's actually the top lip, it's the middle of the top lip that is the vibration point. That's where we get the little buzz that makes the sound. That's how we hold the horn. Now the other thing that's very important, and I'll mention this at this stage, but we'll come back to it later, is putting the right hand in the bell. As you can see, I place the hand inside the bell. It's important that it goes in the right position. And the right position is basically to have it almost straight, just a little bit curved. And as you can see, all my fingers and my thumb closed up. So no gaps, not that and not that, just this. And I place it inside the bell with the back of my hand pointing outwards, so touching the outside, touching the inside of the outer part of the bell. Sorry, this is sounding complicated already. So there. So actually, if I unscrew this bell flare, I put it just there, like that, so that this part of the hand is forming a little curve and kind of mirroring the other side of the tube. I'll explain why this is important a little bit later. And I hope this goes on nice and easily. Oh, thank you. Good. Don't ever spin the bell taking it off. Not a good idea. I've seen them go across the room like a frisbee. Very expensive mistake. So that's basically how we hold the horn. Now, the next thing we need to do if we're going to make a sound is we need to make a vibration with our lips, and in order to do that, we need to blow air between our lips. And before we can do that, we need to breathe. Now, breathing is one of these things that we really can make as complicated or as simple as we want. Breathing is one of the most natural things in the world. It's the first thing we do when we're born. We do it all through our lives. We do it in our sleep, quite literally. So it's not really a difficult thing for us to do. And in normal breathing, what happens is that we breathe in by activating our diaphragm. This is a word that all wind players and singers are very familiar with. The diaphragm is a large muscle. It's dome-shaped, like this, and it sits right about here, just underneath the ribcage. And when it's at rest, it's that shape. When we breathe in, the brain sends a signal to the diaphragm to activate it, and all muscles in the body can only do two things. They can contract and they can relax. So when it's relaxed, it's like that. When we breathe in, it flattens out and pushes forward a little. So it goes. So we can experience that. Can I suggest that all of you just do that? Put your hands like that, and just imagine that you've got this big muscle here, which is that shape, and when you breathe in, it does that, and then, yeah, this is good. So you can actually feel, can't you, that there's a little bit of effort involved in breathing in, and breathing out is just relaxation. This is a little bit confusing for wind players and singers, because we've probably all been taught for years that when we blow, we must use our diaphragm. I think this is a slightly confusing way of describing it, but when we blow air, rather than just relaxing and letting it out, we are doing something slightly different to this normal breathing that we do perfectly well when we're asleep. Actually, another thing you can do, I won't do this now, but if you slouch back in a sofa or lie on the ground and just observe your breathing, you'll see that when you breathe, you take a nice deep breath. Don't think of it as deep down here rather than just big. You'll notice that your abdomen just expands, and then gradually your ribcage expands a little, and at the very top of the breath, if you carry on breathing in, your shoulders probably will just rise a little. I'm not making them rise, they're just coming up a little bit by themselves. The reason for this is that the diaphragm, when it is activated, when it flattens out, it has to make room for itself, so it pushes various internal organs, the spleen and the various things I don't want to think about, things that go into haggis, basically. Not human ones, but these kind of viscera, they need to be pushed out of the way. So the diaphragm pushes them out of the way, and the abdomen, this bit here, expands, and it feels as though the air is going down here. It's not actually, it's going into the lungs, which are much higher, but it feels like it's going down here. This is important. It's very often more important to us what something feels like than what is absolutely accurately taking place. So normal breathing is like that. When we breathe in to blow, we breathe in exactly the same way, deep and gradually filling up. But then instead of just going, we use other muscles, abdominal muscles, lots and lots of them, to, as it were, put the brakes on. They actually act kind of in opposition, a bit like arm wrestling. They're kind of pushing and pulling, and it puts the brake on the air coming out, so we can control it. So blowing feels like, well, we've all done it. Who has ever blown out candles on a birthday cake? Yeah, thought so. So let's just imagine we're doing that. Put your hand here, and put another hand here on your abdomen, and blow air into your hand over the count of about 5 seconds. So here we go. 3, and. Excellent. So my view of this, my feeling, is that if you can do that, if you can blow air on your hand, you can blow out the candles on a birthday cake, you can play a wind instrument. This is what we do when we sing, when we play a wind instrument. Actually, even when we speak, I think I'm right in saying that. If you think about it, you don't just let all the air out at once. You control it, and there's a little bit of, I don't want to use the word tension, but there's some control. So this is blowing. This is producing. Well, it's going some way to producing a sound. The next thing we need to do to actually make a sound is to make the lips vibrate. So. So that's the basis of playing a brass instrument. That actually is how I have earned my living all of my adult life. It seems absurd. I often think I should get a proper job, but that's what I do for a living. And we can make the sound without a mouthpiece. We can make it with a mouthpiece. And then, of course, we can put the mouthpiece in here. That was lucky. I didn't know it was going to be that note. So is the basis of what we do. In order to produce higher or lower pitches, we need to do something slightly different. And here's another place where we can make it as complicated as we want. I would rather not. The way I like to think of this is that I like to go back to the analogy of blowing candles out. So let's do this thing once again. Let's put a hand there, and let's imagine it's a candle. Maybe just one finger. Imagine it's a candle. And put it about there. And what I want you to do, I don't want you to blow it out. I want you just to make it flicker a little bit. So, fabulous. Now put it as far as you can reach. It's a candle. Blow it out. Good. Now, it's a pity we can't all have mirrors as well, because what you will find, and at some point, for the cameras here, we're going to get a little close-up of this, but what you will find, I don't know if you can see from where you are, when I'm trying to blow the air a long way and blow the candle out, the muscles round here, they kind of instinctively grip. These muscles we give the name embouchure. We give them this very grand-sounding name. And brass players can very happily spend hours, days, weeks and months talking about embouchures. And it is an interesting topic. If you want to know more about these muscle groups, if you want to know more about the physiology of the diaphragm and the thorax and the lungs, there are some very interesting places you can go to. Beware of simply going onto the internet and trawling around. The internet is a wonderful thing, but is unregulated, so you don't know. As my son said to me the other evening, you don't know whether this is something written by someone who knows what he's talking about, or just someone sitting around in his pants. And we mean that in the British sense of pants, not pants in the American sense of long trousers. So the internet's not necessarily the best source. I would suggest there's a very, very good book by a man called Christian Steenstrup called Teaching Brass. And I read it recently, learnt a lot from it. But as Christian himself says in his introduction, this won't necessarily make you play better. So for me, it's better sometimes to, as I say, to know what it feels like. So for me, playing a high note is like blowing out that candle. And I blow hard from here. I think of my air going fast and far and in a concentrated, quite cold stream of air. That's another thing. Blow on your hand again, make it cold. Good. That's a high note. Now make it warm. That's a low note. So we're moving a lot of air, but slowly and very warm. These, as I say, these are just ways of describing it. If we get into the physiology of it, then obviously people would be quite right to pick me up on this and say, aha, no, this is not what's actually happening. It's not air speed, it's intraoral air pressure. But I don't find that an easy thing to feel or imagine. In the same way that I don't feel it easy to feel or imagine my diaphragm. The diaphragm doesn't really give anything much back in the way of sensory perception, so it's really hard to feel it. So I prefer just to think of abdominal muscles. So that's basically how we're producing higher and lower notes. As I say, think of a high note not as being up there, but a long way away. So a low note, like this, a medium note, and a high note, with some real control here. But I'm not telling these muscle groups to do anything, I'm just thinking of, and they're doing what they need to do, which is what they do very well all the time. So, so we've learned how to pick up the horn, we've learned how to hold it, we've learned how to move the air and how to vibrate the sound. Oh, one extra little thing to mention. Another thing that brass players spend a lot of time thinking about and sometimes worrying about is this question of mouthpiece pressure. Now, my students will know that I don't even like the word pressure. I prefer the word contact. Sounds much more friendly. Philip Farkas, the great horn player and teacher, in his wonderful book, The Art of French Horn Playing, which I think is still one of, if not the best, books on the shelves about horn playing, he cautioned against heavy or excessive pressure. And he says himself in his book, the important words here are heavy and excessive. So we shouldn't be too anxious about it, but obviously, as Farkas said, heavy or excessive pressure, not a good idea. There are some players who play with very little pressure or contact, who, if they played a note on the mouthpiece and then took the mouthpiece away, would stay at the same pitch. Let me see if I can do this. I'm not one of them. I can do that, but it doesn't feel very natural for me. If I do what I normally do, play the note and take the mouthpiece away, this is what happens. You can hear there's a drop in pitch. If I played lower, it wouldn't be as extreme. Pretty much the same. That's embarrassing. So I use a reasonable amount of what I think of as contact. But obviously, if you press very hard, certainly if you're hurting yourself, that's not a good idea. The other thing I would say is, I personally think if there is a little change in pitch when you take your mouthpiece away, that's fine. I do worry if somebody can't actually produce a note at all without the mouthpiece. I occasionally run into that, and then I think they're probably relying on mouthpiece pressure a little bit too much. And the problem with that is it can lead to early fatigue and lack of flexibility and things we don't want. So be moderate with contact, as in other things. Okay, so back to the horn. So we know how to, we make the sound. That's the sound we make. This actually is just an amplifier. A very beautiful one, but nonetheless an amplifier. So how does this work? Well, it looks very complicated, but we horn players, and I think a lot of people in this room are horn players, we know that it consists of two instruments stuck together, a horn in F and a horn in B flat. And on the horn in F, we have certain notes we can get without any vowels, which we call the harmonic series. And let me see if I can get the lowest one. I'll work my way down to it. Bear with me. Okay, that's what's called the fundamental of the F horn. That's essentially one wave cycle. The next available note is an octave above, which we call the second harmonic. The third is a fifth above that. And that's the fourth, which is another octave. So we've got 2 octaves now. That's up to the 8th. That's up to the 12th. And that's up to the 16th. So all the multiples of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and theoretically, as high as you like. There is no upper limit to the harmonic series. There's just an upper limit to human muscles and tissues. All of those are octaves, and all of those are mathematically in tune with the tempered scale that we in Western music use. I'm pointing at the piano because that's what the piano is tuned to. They are mathematically correct. The tempered scale exists because once we get into notes in between, we have to make some compromises. So, as far as we're concerned, it means that more or less all of the other open notes don't exactly match the tempered scale. Some of them are really obvious. So, the 7th harmonic is very flat. The 11th harmonic is either very flat or very sharp, depending which way you think it should be. So we need to be a little bit cautious about just playing a note on the horn and thinking that's in tune. That's where it is. In tune is a relative term, so we need to use our ears, obviously. The other thing about the horn is that it is it's called a descending valve instrument, which doesn't just mean that the valves, when you press them, physically go down. It means that when you add a valve, the pitch goes down. So it's descending for that reason. And on this horn, these valves here, these valve slides, represent the correct lengths to add a semitone, a whole tone, and a tone and a half to the F horn length. The ones at the back, if you can just make them out, are the ones which add the same proportions, semitone, tone, and 1.5 tones to the B flat horn, which is shorter, which is why they in turn are shorter. It's completely in ratio. The F horn, just before we started, Anna very kindly Googled for me how long an F horn is, because I couldn't, to my shame, I couldn't remember. And an F horn is actually 9 feet in length. So in order to add a semitone to 9 feet of tubing, that's the length you need. Now, so far so good. So good. So any one valve on its own will do its job perfectly. Bearing in mind the open note you started from might not be an absolutely in tune one with the tempered scale. However, if we add more than one, you can hear as we add more valves, it just gets slightly sharper each time. There's a perfectly good explanation for this, which is, if this is the correct amount to add a semitone to 9 feet of F horn, and this is exactly the right amount to add a whole tone to 9 feet of F horn, once we've added, if we add them together, the problem is that once we've added that length, we no longer have an F horn. We have a horn in E. We have a horn that is 9 feet plus, what's that, about 6 inches. Sorry, I can't do this in metric. I'm still in old money. So we now have a horn in E. So that's a semitone lower and longer than the F horn. If we now add the first valve as well, we're adding exactly the right length to add a tone to an F horn, but unfortunately it's not quite long enough to add a tone to an E horn. So, I'm sorry if this sounds very complicated. Have a think about it during the interval, and you'll see it actually makes perfect logical sense. So the more valves we add, the sharper the instrument will become. So just another thing to be aware of when you're playing with piano or with other instrumentalists. Now, I said I would say something about the right hand in the bell. This is the other thing that is actually really, really important, really crucial. The reason it's crucial, the horn is the only instrument that has this, this particular characteristic. If I play without the hand in the bell, listen to this, I'll just play those harmonics again. First thing we notice is that it's a little bit sharper than when I have my hand in the bell. Okay. And the other thing we notice, if I carry on from the 12th harmonic up to the 16th, the notes are rather indistinct. They're almost turning into a glissando. If I put my hand in the bell in the shape I described, like this, fractionally lower in pitch. And now, listen. The notes are much more defined and much clearer and more secure. The reason for this is, again, there's some very good scientific evidence for this. The horn basically works as a resonating tube, and the last part of it, which we refer to as the bell or the flare, is basically an amplifier. So it makes it louder and it gives the sound a little more warmth. But the lower notes, this one for instance, the horn is, I think, unique, certainly unusual, in that the column of air that's actually resonating when I play that note stops about there. So our written middle C, the actual resonating column of air only makes it as far as that. The sound waves carry on beyond that, but the standing wave is ending there. As I come up through the register, the resonating column extends. It creeps out, it creeps out, it creeps out, until by the time I get to there, it's right in the palm of my hand. So our written G at the top of the stave, just about the point where us horn players all think, getting a bit high and dangerous now. That's exactly where the standing wave is, right in the palm of your hand. So it's absolutely essential that we have the hand in the right position, mirroring the other side of the tube, so that we are slightly extending the narrow part of the funnel and stabilising those upper notes. If I had to give one lesson, in all the years I've been teaching all over the world, if I had to give one lesson, it would be this. It would be sort out your right hand position. It's the only thing I know of in horn playing that will massively improve your playing with absolutely no effort or practice. It's the closest thing to the magic bullet I've ever come across. Again, the physics behind this is, to be honest, way above my head. But there are some very, very good references you can check out. Richard Merriweather, who was Paxman's designer, wrote a very scholarly article on the subject in a little book he wrote called The Horn, which in itself is a quote from As You Like It, Shakespeare. And a friend of mine who is a professor of physics and also a horn player has also written some articles basically confirming Merriweather's deductions. And as I say, the physics is pretty complicated, but also pretty conclusive. So, as I say, we can make it as complicated or as simple as we like. I'm not capable of really going fully down the complicated road with the physics, but I'm convinced, and I'm sure some of you have probably studied physics much more than I have and would be able to understand it. But it's pretty evident when we do this that it works. So, the only additional thing to mention about that, this is the final thing I need to say before we actually start doing some playing, is that in terms of hand stopping on the modern horn, everything I've said comes together with the fact that for hand stopping, we need the hand to be in a position where we can go from open to hand stopped with a simple movement of the wrist. And that's going to be our optimum position. So, we need to find a place where the hand sits with that knuckle there, acting like a hinge on the door, and the door just goes closed, opened, closed, open. Simple as that. The final thing to say about hand stopping is, again, all players have argued, for, oh goodness, a couple of hundred years, about what happens when we hand stop. Does the note go up or does the note go down? Can I have a quick show of hands? Who thinks it goes up when we hand stop? Don't be shy. Yes, very good. And who thinks it goes down? Very good. It's a bit like any questions, isn't it? Well, of an unscientific poll in this room, it's about 50-50. Well, you're all right. All of you. Listen. Okay, so it clearly goes down. Yes? Okay, now listen to this. It clearly goes up, doesn't it? So we're all absolutely correct. What's actually happening when it goes up, in fact, I'm really sorry, the people who said I think it goes up, I have to tell you, you're sort of right, but not entirely. What actually happens is that we jump to the next harmonic up in the series. So if I play those stopped notes again, it's coming down from that one. That one. So the amount that the pitch bends is inconsistent across the register, and it happens by one of those wonderful bits of synchronicity in the natural world. The shape of the harmonic series, which is big gaps, and as we go high, smaller gaps, totally coincides with what happens when we close the bell. It comes down a little bit there, more there, a lot there. So if we just simply jump to the next harmonic up, the fingering works out perfectly. So just think, it's jumped up, a semitone, finger a semitone below, it always works. Again, as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. Good, so let's move on to some playing. So can I have the people of my students who volunteered, or rather were press ganged, into coming and joining me for some rhythm games? I think everyone knows who that. Yes, come and join us. Join me, I should say. So having completely mastered everything to do with the mechanics of playing the horn, one of the really important things, punch around a bit, so on. Yes, exactly. One of the really important things we need to be able to do as musicians is to play in time. So let's just set up a little pulse. So let's feel it. Yeah, so we can click our fingers, we can tap our feet. I know us classical musicians are always told not to tap our feet, but on this occasion we can. Good. Now let's make sure that we put that into a kind of pattern and we know we're ones. So let's go 1. Good. And we're going to just signal it with maybe a little nod of a head or anything you like, really. Good. Now, let's do that. Let's do that playing the horn. So we're not going to worry about notes yet. Any note we want to play, we might get a really interesting chord. So let's do the same thing. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Terrific. Let's set something up. So can I have from Alexi round to me, your team 1, and from Becky round to Rachel, your team A. Okay? So everyone feels absolutely equal. So we'll set up one little pulse. You just listen to this for a bit. There you go. Good. Now just play 1 and 3. Your rhythm. Keep going. Two and four. Thank you. So, unfortunately, this lot are all too good for anything to go wrong. But what often happens is that we lose a sense of where one is. And I don't know if you noticed, there was some really good leading going on there. Just really, really discreet, but just a little indication of where one is. One, this is something that my jazz colleagues refer to, you know, finding one. And it's really, really crucial. And for us, one is always, it's what we call a downbeat. And it's called a downbeat for a good reason. If someone's conducting, we relate a lot to conductors, of course. If someone's conducting, if someone was conducting 4 in a bar and they just went, some people do, but pretty quickly you'd think, well, that's really not much help, is it? Because you want something directional. You want to know where one is. So we want one. One. You want to see that. So 1 is always a downbeat, and 4 is always an upbeat. So can we just do this again? So I'll tell you what, the whole group, let's do, Will, you're the leader, and I want you to set up a pulse in 4. You 3 play 1 pulse. I'll stand here and join in with you. You give us a pulse, then I want you to give them a slightly different pulse, and then come back and join us, and then move the tempo. Are you with me?
So they're
give us a riff, and then give them a riff.
They're moving the same tempo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. Good. So this is an important thing for us, I think, to be able to do. We don't necessarily want to do what Will was doing all the time, but if we're playing in an ensemble without a conductor, what we sometimes refer to as self-drive, then somebody probably needs to take charge. And what I would like to think is that everyone, whether they're physically moving or not, everyone is feeling this shape. And feeling is an important word. I personally don't think that rhythm lives here. I don't think it's a cerebral thing. I don't think it's a thinking function. I think it's a feeling function. And rhythm lives in the body. It's about movement. It's about walking, marching, dancing. That's where we feel it. And that's why conducting is actually just a physical manifestation of the pulse. Let's try something else. Let's set up one little riff. Let me give it to you. This is the whole group, okay? When I say I want a bar's rest. Bar's rest. 2 bars rest. 3 bars rest. Good, terrific. So you can see that's relatively easy to do because we can kind of just keep the pulse physically going, really discreetly, but we can keep it going. Let's make it more difficult now. Let me give you another riff. And let's do this one with our eyes closed. Okay, everyone, eyes closed. Here we go. One bar's rest. 3 bars rest. 8 bars rest. 9 Well done. Good, good. That was actually very impressive. I was sort of expecting, and if I'm honest, half hoping that was going to fall apart. But too good, too good. Terrific. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else I want to say. I've almost certainly forgotten something, but it doesn't matter. Rhythm section. Thank you very much. Let's have the bravo. Yeah. So that's basically just a little insight into rhythm, and as I say, I think it's really important that we are able to communicate with each other rhythmically, just by little gestures, little looks, little encouraging nods, and as I say, really knowing where one is really important. The other thing that is just incredibly important as horn players is to have a good sense of pitch. Now, that's something for all musicians. We very often, I'm sure all of us have done oral training of one kind or another. In my memory of oral training, it was, I can't get to the piano, my memory of it is sitting in a class at the age of about 14, when, you know, boys are not at their best at 14, they're vulnerable. And being in a class with all my friends and the music teacher sitting at the piano and playing 2 or 3 notes and saying, Thompson, sing the middle note there. And me going, and everyone laughing, and me thinking, oh, this is so embarrassing. And there's almost a kind of aversion therapy going on. It's like, I don't mean to point the finger at well-meaning teachers, but sometimes all we learn from those oral classes is that it's difficult, we can't do it, it's humiliating, it's best avoided. And none of those things are true. We can do it. One of the mistakes there, I think, is relating pitch to the voice. Because unless you're used to singing, you might hear a pitch perfectly well, but actually finding that in your voice, I didn't really know what pitch was going to come out, because I do actually sing quite a lot in lessons, but I'm not a trained singer. So that's a little bit of a tall order. For us, as musicians, what matters is that we can hear notes as horn players, that we can hear notes on our instrument. And with this in mind, I'm going to get, first of all, these two guys, John and Charlie, this is a little pitch game we play. Could you guys stand back to back? You know the ropes, that's it, good. Now, what's going to happen is Charlie, this side, is going to play a note, and then he's going to play a second note, and John is going to pick up the second note, he's going to play that second note, and then he's going to play a second note. And then Charlie will pick up his second note, and so on. But, because, as I say, we don't want this to be humiliating, terrifying, like some ghastly audition, we want it to be fun. What we're going to do is we're going to start pretty simply. We're going to say, okay, first thing is, because we're not trying to test perfect pitch, where we just know what a note is, Charlie's going to tell us what his first note is going to be. So at least we know where we're starting from. So Charlie, what's your first note going to be?
B flat.
B flat. And we're talking in horn pitch, so a horn B flat. Okay, and the other bit of the rules so far are you can go up or down, a semitone or a tone. That's all. Okay, off you go. Second note. John picks up that one. Charlie picks up the second note there. That's very good. Thank you both very much. So now you might think, you might well think to yourself, and these two gentlemen, I'm sure, are kind of thinking, well, that's kind of easy, isn't it? Really, just tones and semitones. Well, no, actually, it's not. I mean, or at least it's no easier than anything else. Tones and semitones are the building blocks of what we do in Western music. So a perfect fifth or an augmented fourth is no more difficult than a tone or a semitone. It's a different interval. We just get to recognise it, that's all. Let's do the same thing, and let's add, John, you start this time, tell us what the first note is. Let's add major and minor thirds as well.
I'm going to start on a G.
G, good note. Okay, you've gone outside the rules there, but that's okay. Now, I'll tell you what, while these guys are still here, could I ask for, bearing in mind this is supposed to be fun, this is not supposed to be some horrible test, we've got several guests here who I know have horns with them. Can I ask for a couple of brave volunteers to come and just have a little mess around with this? What I'm hoping is that you might occasionally make a mistake, so I can point out what we can do about that. Anyone? Anyone brave enough? Yes, fantastic. Great, come and join. Good stuff. Tell the audience your name.
Jack.
This is Jack. And this is Alex. Fantastic. So, would you two like to take centre stage? You know the rules by now, so shall we go with where they were? Tones and semitones and minor thirds and major thirds. Yeah? Come and stand at the front so everyone can see you. Great. So, Jack, do you want to start? Tell us your first note.
It's G. I like
G. G's a good note. So much. That's absolutely fantastic. I was actually just thinking to myself, this is just going to go perfectly, and I'm going to have to get involved and make some mistakes. That's great. What I wanted to say, I was hoping someone would just do that, because the thing is, if you make a mistake, it helps you, because you kind of go, oh no, it's not that one, it's that one. And occasionally, you might even make two mistakes. You might think, no, lower. Oh, not that low. There it is. So it's a bit like triangulation on maps. You know, if you've got 3 reference points, you know where you are. If you need more than 3, what's happened then is you've gone into panic mode. You've gone into, oh my God, this is so embarrassing, everyone will think I'm an idiot. At which point you probably can't even remember your own name. Which is? Yes. Okay. So, once again, back to back, and oh, please make some more mistakes. Go on. I tell you what, you two are really good. Let's throw it completely open. Let's say you can use any intervals you like, but keep within an octave. So no compound intervals. You're very brave. Go. So, Alex, you start this time. What's your first note?
F.
F?
Sharp.
Sharp. Why did you suddenly decide it was F sharp? That's fantastic. Okay, sorry. He's gone slightly outside the rule. Good. That was a sneaky one. That went ever so slightly outside the octave, but never mind. That was terrific. Thank you both very much indeed. Terrific. Well done. I'm going to involve Elliot now as well with the 3 of them. So can we go? Let's do the 3 of us all back to back. And this gets more difficult because with 3 you have to actually remember and imagine what's going around. So can you kind of stand in a little triangular Toblerone-like shape? Good. Charlie, you start, and we'll go in a clockwise direction as opposed to anti-clockwise. Sorry, Elliot and I have fun about this because Elliot's from the other side of the big pond, so he tends to call it counterclockwise. But anyway, oh no, you don't, do you? We've anglicised him. He calls it anti-clockwise. So anyway, we're going clockwise. So kick off, tell us your first note, and off you go.
A.
Okay. And any intervals you like, but keep within an octave. have a little sort of confession I need to make here, which is that Elliot actually is a possessor of this wonderful thing called perfect pitch. So he's kind of, he's our kind of trump card. However, the reason I mention that is that I think that so-called perfect pitch is, it's not a kind of superpower. It's not like Elliot can fly. He probably can actually, but his sense of pitch is just so good and so developed that we call it perfect pitch. But actually, the other guys have got this fantastic relative pitch, and I suspect this is true of all of us actually, that on our own instrument, so not music teacher at the piano saying, "Can you sing that note?" But on our own instrument, I think we all have a very, very highly developed sense of, well, something approaching perfect pitch. It's difficult for us to experiment with this now because we've been listening to pitches, but tomorrow morning, all of the horn players here, when you get the horn out of the case, the first time you're going to play it, pick it up, decide what note you're going to play. Let's say it's our middle C. And what I want you to do is pick the horn up, just calm, quiet, take a breath, and just at that point, don't play it, just imagine it. And don't try and sing it out loud. Don't confuse the issue by going, ah, because unless you're a trained singer, that's another skill. So just imagine it. And then play it. And just ask yourself, was that a complete surprise? Or was I kind of expecting that? And I'm pretty certain the answer will be, yeah, I kind of knew it was going to be that. So we can develop a really powerful sense of absolute or perfect pitch on our instrument. If somebody plays me a note on the piano, I'm not a keyboard player, they will sound about the same to me in terms of colour. It's just a piano. I don't know what the note is. If somebody plays me a note on the horn, usually I know what the note is. And again, I don't think that's a superpower. I think most of us do if we allow ourselves, if we trust ourselves. So, and talking of trust, can I have another volunteer with a horn? Someone with a horn? Volunteer? Yes, Rachel. Rachel is a friend of ours who's also from the other side of the pond. So, what I want you to do is, amongst the horn players here, we know, don't we, that on the B-flat horn, F at the top of the stave is just open B-flat horn. We also know that theoretically, on that fingering, we could hit a G, tone above. We could hit a sort of E-flat, tone below, couldn't we? Play me an F. No, I'm sorry, I meant the one at the top of the stave. Okay, we'll have to choose another one now, because now that's an interesting one, because let me ask you the question anyway. On that fingering, we could hit a third below or a fourth above. We could hit a D or a B flat. Actually, we could hit an A flat, minor third above, kind of flat one. So I'll ask you the question anyway. Was that an F? You're sure? You're absolutely sure? How sure? 20 Northern Irish pounds, sure? No, I won't encourage you to gamble. But you are sure? Yeah. Well, of course, you're absolutely right. Of course it was. Yes. And this is something that we all have. We kind of, you play a note. The higher ones, because they're closer together, seem more tricky. But John, play me a G. I hope you've forgotten the pitch of that by now. Play me a G at the top of the stave. Now, that could be a G, it could be an F, it could be an A. Was it a G? You're absolutely sure? Yeah? Can't tempt you with money? No. Okay, yeah, of course, he's absolutely right. And we kind of know, we know in a number of ways. I mean, our recognition, that it sounds like a G, it feels like a G. As Philip Farkas said, it tastes like a G. Wonderful description, it kind of just gets a G. Just everything about that says F. Everything about that says wrong note. It's not the one we're going for. So we do have this really quite highly developed sense of pitch. The other thing we can do to to work on this is just to play little tunes by ear. So, Charlie, play me Happy Birthday, starting on G. Good, carry on. Absolutely terrific, and well done. That's particularly impressive of Charlie not to allow himself to go into panic mode, because he made a tiny, tiny error, a tiny slip, sort of thing that I would very likely do as well. But that's one of the things that inhibits us, that we're scared of making a mistake. We're afraid to show that we're human. We've got these cameras rolling at the moment. We're going to be doing massive editing afterwards, so especially if I make any mistakes. I mean, I'm not letting anything that shows me as in any way less than perfect to appear on the internet. I'm serious. So that was terrific. Now, we're going to take a little break in a while, but before we do that, I want to just do a little bit of imitation. So, Rachel, I'd like you to stay. Elliot, I'd like you to stay. You gentlemen go back. And can I have Caris and Becky to join me? And Anna. So the idea of this little segment is we're talking about sound. We've talked about how the horn works, how we breathe, how we produce a note, what the horn does, what the valves do, the harmonic series, the hand in the bell. We've talked about the importance of rhythm and how we can feel it in our bodies and know where one is all the time. We've talked about pitch and how we can encourage our ear to have a strong identity of where we are on our instrument and to have confidence that we're right, that we can do it. Tones and semitones are the building blocks. All the other intervals they're just different, they're no more difficult, and there aren't that many of them. There are only 12 semitones in the octave. That's it. Once you've learned that, you know everything. Nice thought. So now we're talking about the kind of sound we want to make. Now sound, I think, is, again, we can make this really complicated, or we can just listen and imitate. So, with this in mind, Rachel, could you just read the top sentence, nice and loud?
This is a recital hall.
Oh, wonderful. Say it again.
This is a recital hall.
Okay. Elliot, you might as well have a go.
This is a recital hall.
Good. Caris, make it sound like that.
Can you do it one more time? This is a recital hall.
This is a recital hall.
Good. Anna?
This is a recital hall.
Becky.
This is a recital hall.
Good. I like that. That was terrific. Okay. Now, as I say, these two are from the other side of the pond. Two of these people are from up north. So I'd like you to say the second sentence, nice and loud.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Would you like to say that?
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Ah, interesting, different. Same words, I mean, same thing on the text. I mean, exactly the same way that we might look at a piece of music and the dots are the same, but they sound quite different, don't they? Okay, Becky, I love the way you said it. Say it once again, we're going to make them say it properly like you.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Like that.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Good, next.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Well, that's easy for her because she's from there as well. So, but more difficult for you.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Would you like to hear it once again?
Yes.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
London to Bath is 124 miles.
Good, you're getting the Bath thing in. That's very good. Rachel.
London to Bath is 124
Fantastic! Absolutely great. This is good. So basically what I'm saying here is we can do this by just listening and imitating. We don't have to say, look, you need to put your lips here and your tongue like this and do this. I mean, perhaps if someone had a real problem and they were going to a speech therapist, then they would be working at that level. But for most of us, we can just listen and imitate, and it's quite fun. So let's now imitate. I'm going to say something on the horn, and I just want you to imitate it and pass it around. So nothing tricky. I'm going to start with G. Same notes, different accent. Good, good, good. Okay, so again, just imitation, different sounds. Be very hard to, well, you could notate it, but the notation on the page is actually just a representation of what we're doing. And music, it's an interesting thing, this. Music kind of operates like a language, in the sense, sorry, I've just realised another thing I wanted to do. I'll get to this. It operates kind of like a language, in that we understand it, we understand what it's saying. It's unlike any other language though, because we can't translate it. You can't translate Beethoven's Fifth Symphony into French, or German, or English. But we do understand what it means. So with that in mind, yes I have, here we go. We're going to play a little trio. They haven't seen this yet, so this is sight reading. So, Karis, can you play the top line? Anna, can you play the middle line? This is like the end of the note line too. And actually, wait still. Can you play the middle line, Becky? And Anna, can you? Because then I don't have to be involved. Can you play first of all? Can you play this line? So that's the one an octave a bit below middle C. Yeah, long notation. So just from here, if you would, you'll recognise this. This is just the end of one of the Mozart slow movements. About there. Beautiful. And now play it again, and the only change is in the bass part, so you play the bottom line. Okay, so I'm sure you all know that is that number 2 or number 4? It's number 2, isn't it? Yeah, number 2. And that the first time with the perfect cadence happens twice, and the very last time we get this interrupted cadence. And it sounds to my ears like the first one is just a simple statement. The second one has a kind of just a little bit of question about it. And because of that, Karis will instinctively, as she did, play slightly differently. Do it once again. Do the first one and then the second one. That's, I think harmonically a very simple illustration of how a single line can be affected by what's going on underneath. And for me, the whole issue of phrasing, the whole issue of how we play a phrase, and what you might even refer to as playing musically. We hear that a lot, don't we? We hear, oh, so-and-so plays very musically. And from time to time, I've had discussions with people about what that means. I remember having a discussion with a good friend of mine some years ago who said, well, the notes are there, the dynamics are there, you can't really do anything, so presumably being musical is just kind of pulling the tempo around a bit, rubato. And I couldn't quite at the time put my finger on why I felt that was so fundamentally wrong. But I think, at my admittedly not tremendously academic level of understanding, it would seem to me that the underlying harmony in Western music is what guides us towards where the phrase is going. So with that in mind, Rachel, thank you very much. Becky, thank you very much. Karis and Elliot, thank you very much as well. Let's just put that into context in terms of playing some tunes. So let me play an opening phrase. So we're just going to play a few notes and imitate. So, Karis, you first. this, don't you?
Yes.
Play the rest of the phrase.
Oh no. Shall I go on?
Yeah, it's nice. You enjoy it. More?
All right. Sorry, I went wrong.
No, that's fine. I'm sure it's absolutely fine. I mean, the lovely thing about this, sorry, it's just kind of unfair of me just to not even put the music up, but that's why I wanted to do it, because I think it's really important that we don't think of things like this as excerpts. I don't think music like this should just exist in this strange limbo land called excerpts. It's music, and I think, you know, listening to Karis play that, you are aware of what the music sounds like. You can hear the orchestra in your imagination. I'm sure you are as well. And I like that little version now. I think if men had thought of that, we've done it. So Anna, let's put you on the spot. Where should we go with this one? This is something we can explore. How we're going to do this slur. We could do it this way. Reasonably clean. Yeah, or we could do this. Yeah, that would be held in high esteem in certain parts of Europe. That's actually an important thing. One of the things that is important in terms of how we hear a sound, how we perceive it, is what physicists refer to as transients. And this basically means the beginning of the note, how you move between notes, and the end of the note. Of the three, the beginning of the note is probably the most important. It's what's sometimes called the attack. I don't like that word very much, but the beginning of the note. So if, for instance, we play a note that goes, what our ear registers is that rather hard beginning to the note. If, on the other hand, we get a slightly rounder and softer front, that's what we register. If we actually, and there have been experiments to do this, if we actually electronically take off the beginning of the note and start the tape in the middle, the notes sound remarkably similar, even to the extent that if you do this with, say, a bassoon, a horn and a clarinet on the same pitch, it's really difficult to tell what instrument is playing without the starting transient. So that's something we should remember as horn players, that the beginnings of notes are super, super important. You know what tune that was we were doing, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it. Thank you very much. Thank you both very much indeed.